Welcome those who are new to the community. My name is Aga Postavska. I'm a holistic health coach. I've been with the Candida Cleanser for over a decade now. I had my own Candida infection, and when I turned my life around with the cleanse and the GAPS diet, I then became the community admin and health coach for Candida Cleanser, guiding other people through the process as well. And then Nikki came on about 3 years ago, and she joined the team and she became a certified GAPS practitioner, which is so awesome because, like myself, I'm just gut health enthusiast and expert in my own self study. And I was obsessed with that book and that diet, but it's so cool to have Nikki here because she actually trained to be a practitioner under that protocol. So it's really cool to have Nikki here. So I'd love to pass it over to you to introduce yourself and what we're covering today.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with all of you. I have about a 50-minute presentation for you. I'll go over what we're covering as well in a little bit. But just know that we are going to have time at the end for Q&A. So we will keep the questions until the end. So if you want to write your questions in the chat so you don't forget, feel free to do that. Just also know that we aren't leaving you alone in the chat. Aga will be keeping an eye. So if anything does come up, technical, whatever it may be, she will be keeping an eye on that. So today we are talking about gut healing with a GAPS diet. Welcome. So we are going to cover digestion and its role. I'm going to go over a little bit about digestion and how it works. I'm going to talk about the microbiome, also known as the gut flora, and what it actually does for us. We'll talk a little bit about the gut-brain connection, signs of an unhealthy gut, and what makes your gut actually sick. And then, of course, we'll get into the GAPS diet and why it's so good for deep gut healing. So we're going to go over the intro diet, which is 6 stages. It's a full elimination diet. And we're also going to talk about the full GAPS diet. And then at the end, I do have some tips for better gut health for you. And at the end is when I'm going to give you also a free 7-day full GAPS diet meal plan. So you'll want to stick around till the end. And then we also have early bird pricing for our 30-day gut rehab challenge that we have coming up April 1st. So you'll want to stick around till the end. We'll be putting the links to those in the chat. So again, my name is Nikki. I am a certified holistic nutritionist. I went to school at Canadian School of Natural Nutrition here in Vancouver, and I finished school in 2021, and that's really when I discovered that I fell in love with gut health. I really realized that it was the root to so many of the issues that we experience mentally and physically, a lot of our symptoms. I was also dealing with my own gut health issues at the time, mostly bloating, fatigue. I had sinus congestion, brain fog, and there was a short period of time when I was dealing with a lot of itching, like mostly on my thighs and on my arms. It was like uncontrollable itching so bad that my skin became really inflamed. And this was mostly at nighttime. So going through school was really empowering for me to learn how to heal my own gut and what that really took. And I also heard about the GAPS diet through school, and I knew that it was something that I wanted to study deeper. It was a huge interest of mine because of the natural way that we can heal our gut. And so in 2023, that's when I decided to finish the practitioner training. And during that time, I actually went through the GAPS intro diet for about 4 months. So I do have experience with this diet, and I can tell you firsthand that it is so incredible. It not only helped me physically and mentally with all of those symptoms, but it also helped me on like a spiritual level. Like my body has never felt so safe. And yeah, so it's just a really amazing diet, and I can tell you firsthand. And then I'm also a Reiki energy practitioner, so helping to balance energy in your body. I'm a ceremonial cacao guide, so any of you who don't know what ceremonial cacao is, it's pure chocolate, nothing added, nothing taken away. It's a chocolate drink it's a liquid that you drink, and this has actually really helped me with daily ritual and mindfulness. So cacao isn't just a plant medicine that opens your heart, it's also a food. And so it's really helped me to bring that into my meals, sitting down with intention and eating mindfully. I'm also a nature lover, so I've been walking in the forest more, connecting with the trees, the plants, just getting my connection to the forest and nature, really deepening that connection. And then most importantly, I'm a cat mom. So this is my cat Kirby. I've had him for about 10 years, or he's 10 years old, and I've had him for 5 years. So, as Hippocrates, the father of modern day medicine, said over 2,000 years ago, all diseases begin in the gut. And the more we research, the more we learn about the gut, the more we realize how true this still is to this day, 2,000 years later. Traditional Chinese medicine also emphasizes gut health as being the core of wellness. And then if we date back even further, 5,000 years, Ayurvedic medicine talks about your digestive fire known as Agni. And it talks about if there's an imbalance in your digestive fire, how that is the root to all diseases. Just going to take some water. So let's just define what the gut is. When we talk about the gut, we're talking about the whole gastrointestinal tract. So this is the pathway from food going into your mouth, down your esophagus, to your stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and out the other end. So when you look at this diagram, we're kind of like one big tube, one big giant donut. So everything, the journey of our food is really still technically on the outside. And our intestinal lining here is only 1 cell thick. That's it. So it's important that it needs to be really strong and help us and help protect us from the outside world so that these pathogens and toxins don't seep into our bloodstream. So the main focus is for our digestion is absorbing those nutrients and bringing them into the bloodstream so that we can actually have the building blocks so our bodies can function properly. And like I mentioned, it's our protection from the outside world. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about stomach acid too. So we'll go over the journey of food. So our digestion really begins when we look at food, see food, prepare food. That's when our saliva and our digestive juices start flowing. And we actually start breaking down our carbohydrates in our saliva. So we have something called amylase, which is an enzyme, and it breaks down our carbs in our mouth. So when we chew, so much so that it turns into chyme, and it should be like a mush-like state, we'll swallow, it will go down our esophagus and into our stomach. Now our stomach needs to be acidic. We have something called hydrochloric acid in our stomach. And this is like the first domino to fall if we don't have enough stomach acid. And actually 80 to 85% of us aren't producing enough. So stomach acid plays many different roles. A few of them are it helps to sterilize and kill any bacteria or worms or anything that we may have eaten from our food or our drink. And then it's also helps to, a proper amount of pH in our stomach helps to close the esophageal sphincter. This is like a muscle that leads the food from our esophagus to our stomach. And that we need to have a proper pH in our stomach in order for that to actually close. So when it doesn't close properly, that's when stomach acid in food gets splashed up into our esophagus, and this can cause heartburn. This is also where our protein digestion begins with something called pepsin. So our carbs digest in our mouth, and as we eat our food, our carbohydrates stop digesting, and this is where our proteins digest. Proteins are so important for the building blocks for our entire body. We also need enough stomach acid. This is the most important thing. It helps our small intestine, the first part called the duodenum. It helps that area to release 2 hormones. And these hormones are basically like knocking on your pancreas like, hey, we need enzymes. You need to release enzymes. We have food coming. We need to break down our carbs, fats, our proteins, release these enzymes. And then it also tells the pancreas that we have acidic food coming from the stomach. We need to alkalize this. So we need to release a bicarbonate solution. So it's kind of like your own baking soda to alkalize the food. And then it's also knocking on the liver. And it's like, hey, we need bile. We need bile to break down our fats. And then we also need mucus. We need mucus to line our whole intestinal lining to prepare our body for the journey of food. And so when we don't have enough stomach acid because of things like medication, antacids, which is literally stopping our production of stomach acid, processed foods, things like that, when we don't have enough, that whole process doesn't happen. And what happens is our food ends up sitting here undigested, and the proteins that are undigested are leaving us deficient. The fats that we don't digest, we're deficient in our fats, and we need fats for our brain, for our nervous system, our immune system, for so many different things. And then the undigested carbs are also feeding pathogens like parasites and candida and other microbes. And another thing with stomach acid, if it's too little, we do have little critters in here that live in small amounts, and they actually serve a purpose. We have like H. pylori in our stomach, we have E. coli, salmonella, candida, some worms. And if we don't have enough stomach acid, those can actually overpopulate the stomach and parts of the small intestine. And this is what leads to SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So really important that we have enough stomach acid. It's really the first place we need to start with our digestion. Now, as the food goes lower, our small intestine is really there to help us absorb our food and break down our food a little bit. And then the further down we go, we see more microbes. So this is kind of where more of our microbiome or gut flora begins. And then we're in the large intestine, still a little bit of absorption, but we're mostly breaking down our food at this point. And this is also where a lot of our microbiome is. So getting into our microbiome, also known as the gut flora, it's basically a collection of bacteria, viruses, worms, candida, other critters. So we have a little mini ecosystem living in our body. And if you're going to think of your microbiome like anything, I'd love for you to think of it like the soil outside. So we have the soil outside has like fungi, worms, all these little microbes, and they coexist together. They live together in harmony, and they actually all serve a purpose. It's just when they become overgrown that they start to create an issue in our body. Bacteria, of all of our microbes in our microbiome, is the most researched. Right now, we see thousands of different species, and the list still grows. So this is actually very new research for us. We're still learning so much about our microbiome. We're only really starting to just scratch the surface. We know that in our gut alone, we have 100 trillion bacteria. And so this is actually 10 times more human than we have human cells in our body. So we're really like a host to this bacteria. So it's important that we see our microbiome and this bacteria as our friends, because if we feed them well, they'll in turn be good to us and they'll support us. So we have beneficial or good bacteria, and then we have what's called opportunistic. And this is the opportunistic is, for example, like your candida yeast, which is in small amounts. It serves a purpose. It helps bind things like heavy metals like mercury. So these opportunistic ones only account for 3 to 10% of our microbiome. Now, when there's stress or medication use or too many processed foods, that's when an imbalance can happen. We might have too much of the opportunistic. They love opportunity. They'll take any chance to overgrow, and less of the good bacteria. And this is what we call dysbiosis. And it's worth mentioning that your microbiome is unique to you. It's like a fingerprint. So all of these microbes that we have, no two microbiomes are the same. What works for one person might not work for the other. How we react to food, so much determines the difference of our microbiome. So what does our gut flora actually do for us? The most important thing, it helps us digest and absorb our food. So if we don't digest and absorb, we're leading to nutrient deficiencies. We also have something called epithelial cells, enterocytes, that digest and absorb. They're on your intestinal lining, and they have a very short life because all they're doing is digesting and absorbing. And when they die and are reborn, this is what's called cell regeneration. So no matter how sick your gut is, it is always working to heal itself. A perfect example of this is every 3 to 4 months, we actually get a new liver because of cell regeneration. But when our intestinal lining maybe becomes sick, that's when those cells can actually lead to cancer. So again, another reason we need to keep our intestinal lining healthy. And then our gut flora as well produces fuel for these cells, for the epithelial cells. Ghee is a perfect example of that. Ghee contains something called butyrate, and butyrate is fuel for these cells. It gives them food. And our gut flora can actually make that on its own from fiber that we eat. But again, remember, most of us aren't making enough stomach acid. So the whole process of digestion isn't happening. So the chances of you making butyrate from any fiber that you eat probably isn't happening. It's also helping us, it's also helping to protect us from invaders and toxins. So 80 to 85% of our immune system is in our gut. It's also in our intestinal lining. Our gut flora naturally makes antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, and antimicrobial properties. So we have like our own little pharmacy in our gut. It neutralizes dangerous chemicals, so anything that our stomach might not have gotten from the food or drink. And it also helps to take those chemicals out and any heavy metals. It helps to bind those and remove them from your body. Now, gut flora also produces vitamins, hormones, and neurotransmitters. So we're getting it not only from our nutrients, from digestion, but our gut flora also makes our own B vitamins and K2, which is so incredible. We cannot live without these vitamins. B vitamins, for example, are so important for converting carbs into glucose, so we need it for energy. It's important for our nervous system and our heart health. B12 specifically helps with blood cell formation and growth. And then K2, for example, is really important for our bone health. It helps to shuttle vitamin D and calcium to your bones. And it also is important for heart health. It helps with preventing your arteries from clogging. So really important vitamins. And then it's also, our gut flora makes over 40 hormones. It's responsible for producing over 40 hormones, as well as metabolizing some of them. So for example, our liver makes a steroid hormone, and then that steroid hormone gets released in our bile into our intestinal lining or into our intestines. And there's a bacteria in our gut flora, I can't remember the name right now, but it converts that steroid hormone into testosterone for us. For neurotransmitters, our gut flora makes 95% of serotonin. So this is what's responsible for us feeling happy, feeling joyful. It's also responsible for 50% of dopamine. This is our motivation neurotransmitter. It's what helps us get out of bed. And then also GABA. So if we're really low in GABA, we might experience anxiety, panic, or insomnia. And it's worth mentioning too that anyone who suffers from depression always is low in serotonin and dopamine. So the gut-brain connection. Often we refer to the gut as the second brain, but some of us would actually even argue that it's the first brain because we have our own little enteric nervous system in our gut. So this is actually a network of neurons. It's not only managing digestion, but it's also communicates directly to our brain through something called the vagus nerve. So that runs all the way from your gut to your brain. It's your longest nerve, and it's constantly in communication with each other. Now, just to give you an idea as to how our gut can really impact our brain, Candida, as a yeast in small amounts, when it overgrows, because of, again, processed foods, it feeds on the sugars, the carbs, or antibiotic use, anything. When it overgrows, it turns into a fungus. And at that time, it releases something called acetaldehyde. So this is the same thing that alcohol is broken down to in your body. It's like a human carcinogen for your body, and it's really wreaking havoc on your liver. It's damaging your gut lining, your immune system. glutathione levels, which is what your liver makes. It's a natural antioxidant that helps clean out your cells. Also, stomach acid production. It stops us from making our own stomach acid. And it also is crossing the blood-brain barrier and it damages your brain. So if you think of someone who's, drunk, there may be impaired speech, coordination, maybe there's some aggression or loss of memory. This is a result of acetaldehyde. So candida is just always releasing this. And this is just one example, one fungus that I'm talking about. And so it's like you have your own microbrewery in your body. And to give you an example as well with kids, how this happens is our microbiome we get from our mom. So if mom has candida overgrowth, she's constantly releasing these toxins. And as baby, we are taking in that gut flora when we're being born. If it's a vaginal birth, we're also getting that dose of gut flora. And then in breast milk, these toxins are also being passed down to us through breast milk. So that's why a lot more kids are being born with autism, or we're seeing a lot more kids born with autism and just psychological problems in general. And then any undigested proteins. So remember, I talked about how if our stomach acid isn't there, we aren't digesting our proteins properly. Gluten and casein are the top two proteins that are shown to actually shift into a chemical structure that's similar to opioids. So think of like a very addictive drug like morphine, heroin, and that's been shown also to cross that blood-brain barrier and actually block certain parts of your brain. So again, leading to psychological problems. So what makes our gut sick? Well, of course, the processed foods. A lot of the stuff we see in the store is in a box. It's shifted, it's man-made. There's lots of sugars. This is going to have a huge impact and cause inflammation and stop us from prevent us from creating our own stomach acid. If we're overeating, our body doesn't recognize that food. It needs to be chewed so much so that it's a mush-like state. Our body doesn't know what to do with food that's still in its almost full state. And also, if we're eating too fast, our body produces a hormone that's called ghrelin, and it tells us when we're full. If we're overeating or eating too fast, we don't get that hormone in time until after we've finished eating. And by that time, we're like, oh, I feel so sick. I feel so full. So overeating as well. Antibiotics, antifungals are kind of in the same category. Sterilize your gut completely. Antibiotics also have a huge effect on your organs and tissues. They basically make bacteria resistant to antibiotics. So there's always a new, more powerful antibiotic coming out, which is not helpful for us. Antibiotics damage your immune system. So without a full working immune system, we're susceptible to more infections, which lead to more antibiotics. So it's like this vicious cycle. Antacids, I mentioned this before, it stops stomach acid secretion completely. So again, we don't have heartburn necessarily because of too much stomach acid. It's usually too low. Chronic stress, so our bodies can actually recover from being in a stressful state, which is our sympathetic nervous system, fight and flight. Naturally, we go back and forth between our fight and flight and our rest and digest. This is our parasympathetic nervous system. So as we just naturally go back and forth, our gut should be able to recover. The problem is we're in a chronic stress state. So we're chronically in this fight or flight, and our gut is not able to actually repair or heal itself. And also when we're stressed, our digestion just completely stops working. Environmental factors, so the pesticides, pollution, plastics, think makeup, hair dyes, laundry detergents, things on our carpet, those are actually act as hormones, and they disrupt your hormones from actually being able to play out their functions. Fluoride and chlorine, these are in our water, fluoride's in our toothpaste. They completely wipe your body's supply of iodine. Now, iodine is so important because your thyroid hormone, which is really important for like energy, blood pressure, heart rate, body weight, mood, sleep, other things, The molecules in our thyroid hormone need iodine. Also, our cells need iodine, our brain, our nervous system, our skin, and so many other organs. So when we're drinking these from our water, or we have them in our toothpaste or in other things in our house, it's causing a complete deficiency of iodine, which we need for so many things in our body, and really changes our gut flora. Medications and birth control, kind of the same category as antibiotics, are really shifting our gut flora and having a huge impact on our hormones. And then family history, like I mentioned, we get our gut flora from our mom and our dad. And yeah, the condition that our mom and dad, what their gut flora is. So these are all signs of an unhealthy gut. And I call them GAPS disorders because I actually got most of these directly from Dr. Natasha's book. These are many of them physical symptoms. Some of them we have some of the psychological symptoms. But these are only, I mean, there's of course the bloating, brain fog, all of those I put here, digestive symptoms as well. But this is what it can lead to if it's untreated. And just know, I'll use like depression as an example. If someone suffers with depression, but they don't have any digestive issues, so maybe you have hair loss or hay fever, but you don't experience any bloating or diarrhea or constipation, that does not matter. We find, especially Dr. Natasha speaks about in her clinical experience, oftentimes when we start with the gut, all of a sudden, all these symptoms and things, they start to lift. So you'd be surprised that when you start healing your gut, all of the symptoms that you've maybe normalized, or even symptoms that you didn't even know you had, how they start to go away just by addressing your gut health.
Yeah, before we move from this slide, I'd love those who are here in the chat. Like, are you experiencing any of these symptoms? If so, like, if it's, addictions or anemia or autoimmunity, like put an A. If it's something in the C section, put a C, D, F, M, just give us a little flavor of what's going on in your life, if you can relate to this list at all.
Yeah, and this is only some of them. Like, there's so many more. This is just giving you a good idea as to where things can really go if we aren't addressing our gut health at all. So you get any?
Brain fog, oral thrush, parasites, fatigue, D and R. Someone asked about kidney stones. Someone has suffer many. Also, this person suffers many kidney stones.
Yeah, I mean, stones also form if our juices aren't flowing properly. We get bile stones because things can calcify, and they aren't things. If things aren't moving like they should, and they're becoming stagnant, and we have too many toxins in our body, this is when things can really calcify, and stones can really form from that. So,
ooh, surgery. I like that one as a factor. I get a lot of people who have had great health, but then they had an accident, went into surgery, got put on morphine or anesthesia for the surgery, and then they got pumped with antibiotics and hormones for the recovery, and then boom, nothing's the same ever again. All of a sudden they have brain fog, they've got some skin issues, they've got fatigue, and yeah, it's like the beginning stages of some sort of imbalance, and it can just take one hit like that. It doesn't have to be many of the factors like are accumulative, right? Exposure over time, but sometimes it's that acute thing, and then we have a lot of pieces to pick up.
yeah, totally. That's so true. It is sometimes when you get that, or you have that one round of antibiotics, and I hear all the time, like, my digestion was just never the same. Like, I always hear it.
And it's so normalized. It's so normalized that it's just something normal, but it's not.
Yeah, and we just continue to treat infections and other things with antibiotics. Remember, like, our gut bacteria becomes resistant to that. So again, we're like creating stronger, more powerful ones to outsmart those bacteria, but those bacteria are the ones that are helping us. So yeah, it's like this really vicious cycle. So
All right, thanks everybody for chiming in.
thanks for Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah. All right. So I want to talk about leaky gut as well a little bit here. So, is your gut leaky? Many of you have probably heard of leaky gut. So, as I mentioned, our gut lining is only one cell thick. So, this is our gut lining here. We have food that is inside our intestinal lining. So, it's still, again, technically on the outside. And then our bloodstream is on the other side. And our intestinal lining has small microscopic holes. And what this does is it helps pull nutrients from our food into our bloodstream so that it can be circled around and go to wherever it needs to go so that we can function. Now, these small holes are held together by something called junctions. And when these junctions are inflamed or there's food not being broken down, they actually become loose. And now this cheesecloth with small microscopic holes looks more like a fishnet. And candida actually can also do the same thing. As it becomes a fungus, it has roots or hyphae that rips through our intestinal lining and creating large holes in our intestinal wall. So now all of everything that's happening in our intestines, we have poop particles, toxins, parasites, undigested food, that's all now getting into our bloodstream. And this is also what can cause autoimmune conditions. Our immune system does not recognize things that are coming into our blood, and our body starts attacking itself. This is known as leaky gut. And Functional Medicine University said, leaky gut syndrome is a major cause of disease and dysfunction in modern society. It accounts for at least 50% of chronic complaints, as confirmed by lab tests. So if you go to a naturopathic doctor or a nutritionist or anyone for gut healing, they'll probably tell you to follow the 4R protocol. So that is remove, replace, repair, and repopulate. So in the remove phase, we're removing the processed foods and the foods that were the allergen foods we're sensitive to. Some of the top ones are corn, soy, gluten, sugar. Corn and soy are not being, there's chemical fertilizer all over corn. Soy isn't being prepared properly. It should always be fermented. And so this is causing an issue in our body. So we need to remove all of those allergens and processed foods. And then also we're removing the pathogens like the candida fungus or the parasites or other critters that might have overgrown. And then we're replacing it with wholesome, gut-nourishing organic foods. So our healthy fats or proteins, meat stock, fermented foods. This is like everything in the GAPS diet. And then we're also maybe replacing that. So we might think about taking what's called betaine HCl or hydrochloric acid. This acts as stomach acid. And we might also take that with a digestive enzyme just to help our bodies actually get those nutrients from that good food that we're eating now. So repair is also kind of similar to replace. We're replacing with repairing food. So meat stock. Meat stock is so good for healing and sealing your gut lining. Ghee, which is on the bottom left here, I mentioned, has something called butyrate. So it's really good for feeding those cells and for our gut flora. We might also bring in something like marshmallow root or slippery elm. This is really soothing for our whole mucosal gastrointestinal tract. We might also bring in some herbs or supplementation, but only if needed. And then we're also working to repopulate our gut. So now we're bringing in those good guys. Remember what they do for us. They help with our immune system, digest our food. They give us vitamins, neurotransmitters. So now we need to bring those in. And the best way you can do that is fermented foods, but we can also use probiotics.
One thing I wanted to add with that probiotic, the role of them, I remember reading in Natasha's book, there's studies done with mice where if you don't have gut bacteria in your gut, you won't heal leaky gut. You can eat all the ghee and the meat stock, but the healing won't actually happen because it's your probiotics that are the construction workers. They're the ones that will help repair the gut lining. So that last fourth phase is so important. Like, you need the probiotics because without them, the healing is not as effective. And there was studies done on mice where yeah, if they didn't have the good gut bacteria, no healing took place, but it was the healthy microbiome that actually repaired the leaky gut.
Yeah, similar to like if we're eating all this healthy food, but our digestive system isn't working properly, we don't have stomach acid, then we're just not really getting any of those nutrients. So yeah, gut flora is really, really, um, really needed, especially for healing and sealing. Thanks for bringing that up. So now we'll talk about the GAPS diet. So this stands for gut and psychology syndrome or gut and physiology syndrome. So it's developed by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, which is a natural treatment that she's created to heal leaky gut and heal our dysbiosis. So remember, that's more of the harmful bacteria rather than the good bacteria in our microbiome. She has a lot of clinical experience. Her son was actually diagnosed with autism, and Dr. Natasha is a medical doctor, but when her son was diagnosed, she wanted to study more nutrition because she's like, there has to be a link between nutrition and our psychological problems. So she started practicing as a nutritionist, and she kind of got this diet from what's called the simple carbohydrate diet. So it's based on that. In the simple carbohydrate diet was an elimination of complex carbs. So grains, starchy vegetables, sugar, lactose. And it was really helpful for digestive conditions, as well as celiac disease, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. So GAPS is solely based on that. She didn't try to reinvent the wheel, but as years have gone on and she's seen more and more patients, I think over like 25 or 30 years now, she has continued to evolve the diet. So she has her first book in 2004 is the yellow book here, Gut and Psychology Syndrome. This is talking a lot about like our psychological symptoms that we experience and how it's connected to the gut. And then this blue book came out in 2020. And this is the one I would totally recommend. It's bigger, but it gives you way more in terms of what's happening in your gut. And so this came out in 2020. So these books are actually still pretty new. And she has really evolved this diet into something that works. So it's focusing on natural, fresh, whole, real foods, organic, sustainably grown, raised, never processed, and never genetically modified. It's giving your body exactly what it needs to heal. So our bodies know how to heal. We just need to give them the right nutrients. And then again, supplementation, maybe only if we need it. We might use fermented cod liver oil. It's giving us vitamin D and A in its natural form. Remember, we need fats for our brain health and so many other things. We might supplement with minerals and enzymes. It's always recommended to really heal and seal your gut lining first and then use supplementation. We might supplement with, again, enzymes or stomach acid, and then maybe probiotics. But we're really trying to get everything from food. And then it's also a focus of detoxification. So 20 minutes of morning sunlight is a really great way to open your detox pathways naturally. Epsom salt baths are awesome for removing toxins. Dry brushing helps your lymphatic system get the fluid moving. Enemas can be really helpful if your body isn't eliminating. If you're not going to the bathroom, then enemas can really help with that. And our gut is actually it's our major source of toxicity. So it's important to be eliminating going to the bathroom every single day. And then sauna, we might use things like the sauna to sweat. So our skin is an organ, and it's also a huge detoxification organ. So as a reminder, I had just said it, we need to heal our digestive system and gut to get the benefits of the healthy food that we're eating. So we're kind of doing all of that in the GAPS diet. So we have the GAPS intro. This is 6 stages. It's the fastest way to heal your gut, but the timing is different for everyone. Remember, the health of our gut is different. Our microbiomes are different. And then if you go through the intro, technically this is when you would shift into the full GAPS diet. And so this is a wider range of foods. It's often followed for at least 2 years. And then we have coming off the GAPS diet. So this is when we reintroduce commercial foods. Now, I wanted to dedicate a whole slide to meat stock because it is such a powerful, I actually just had some this morning. It's such a powerful food. It is different than bone broth, and I will talk about that. So meat stock has a lot of gelatin, minerals, amino acids that really help to heal and seal your intestinal lining. So your small intestine, that first part, your duodenum, and the whole rest of your intestinal system. It helps us make our own stomach acid, and which is breaking down those proteins. And it is a whole meal. So we're cooking not just bone like in bone broth, we're using like a lot of meat to bone. So we really need that connective tissue. The connective tissue helps us heal our connective tissue. So examples, turkey legs, thighs, whole chicken cut up. We might use chicken feet, which is really high in collagen. So think a lot of meat to bone. And we always, especially in the intro, we need to start with meat stock and only drink meat stock and eat meat stock in the intro. Bone broth is different. It's only bone and it's cooked for a longer period of time. And bone broth has something called glutamic acid in it. Now, if our gut is still leaky and it's not healed, glutamic acid can get into our bloodstream and actually be quite harmful for our nervous system. So Dr. Natasha always talks about in the intro, we only have meat stock. If you are starting with the full GAPS diet, then you would actually want to have meat stock for the first year at least. So the GAPS diet, the intro diet, is 6 stages. I'll just briefly go over each one and kind of what we eat just to give you all an idea. So this one is 2 to 5 days only because we're not giving our body all of the nutrients that it needs in this first stage. So we have meat stock, fish stock, non-fibrous vegetables. We can't have any fiber in these first few stages because when our gut is inflamed, fiber can actually act as like sandpaper on our intestinal lining. We're having a lot of probiotic liquids, so that can come from dairy like yogurt, creme fraiche, and we're making everything at home. That might come from a beet kvass or cabbage juice, which is essentially sauerkraut, but the juice of sauerkraut. And then we're also drinking fresh mint or ginger or chamomile tea in between. And we can have raw honey as well in very small amounts. We shouldn't be having spoonfuls of it. There's always an emphasis on really introducing everything in small amounts and very slowly on this diet. So raw honey is a monosaccharide. It has sugar, basically has like, I think it's like 60 something minerals that it's needed to be broken down in your body. And honey contains all of that as well as dried fruit. Now, processed sugar has all of those minerals stripped away from it. So as we eat processed sugar, or that's been modified, it actually takes all those minerals from our body and it leaves us depleted. So that's why raw honey is good for us, and we can have a little bit of it in this diet. And then we might also do something called the sensitivity test. This is basically where you put food on the inside of your wrist. You go to sleep, you wake up in the morning, and if there's a little red mark, then that's an indication that that might be what happens in your intestinal lining. So then you won't want to introduce that food until your gut's more healed. So that's with any food through the intro diet. And then there's also a dairy introductory structure. And this is, if you have a sensitivity to commercial dairy, then we would want to do the dairy introduction structure. This is basically removing all dairy for 6 to 12 weeks, I believe it is. And then you would start with ghee because ghee has all of the milk solids removed. A lot of people who are lactose intolerant find they can actually tolerate ghee. So we start with ghee, then we move on to butter, and then yogurt, creme fraiche. So there's a whole line to how we introduce the dairy. Stage 2, so we're bringing everything from stage 1 and we're always increasing the amounts from the previous stages. Plus we're including raw egg yolk, not whites. A lot of us have sensitivity to whites, so we're only having yolk. We're making stews and casseroles with meat and non-fibrous vegetables. We're introducing ghee. We're using a lot of healthy fats and fermented fish. Stage 3, again, everything from the previous stages. We're really boosting that. We're constantly having meat stock, fermented foods, and we're adding mashed avocado, nut butter pancakes. Those are made with squash, nut butter, eggs, and fat. They're really good. Scrambled eggs, sauerkraut. Now we can actually eat the cabbage from the sauerkraut because our gut should be healed enough and be able to handle the fiber. And then fermented vegetables. We can actually eat those now too. And so we're always adding a lot of healthy fat. This is helping to help with our blood sugar control, and it's helping with also cravings. So these are all the kind of fats that we can add, and we're always introducing foods very, very slowly.
Can you speak to what lets you move from stage 2 to stage 3? Because this is all very flexible. Each person's different. You see that stage 1 is 2 to 5 days only. What are the signs that you can move to the next one?
I mean, it's different for everyone, but you will dance back and forth. So stage 2, you can stay in that stage for as long as you need to, I should mention. But until you start to, I guess, feel better or some symptoms that you have really disappear. So maybe if you experience diarrhea, and that goes away, you might move from stage 2 to stage 3. But moving back and forth between the stages, it's really just detective work. We don't know if you introduce avocado and your diarrhea comes back, or a symptom or a new symptom comes up. Oh, that's an indication we need to go back. So it's really when you start to feel better, when those symptoms that you have go away, that's when we want to move from the stages. But we're always kind of going back and forth. It's definitely a dance in the intro diet. Did you want to touch on anything else with that?
I know, I think that's perfect. I do remember saying, like, as soon as you introduce something, you move to the next stage, and something happens with your digestion, be it constipation or diarrhea, that's a sign to actually go back or find out what it was. Like, was it the mashed potato, or was it the mashed avocado, or was it the nut butter that you introduced? And doing, like you said, that detective work, because you might not be ready for all the foods in stage 3, but maybe some of them. So this is where, like, food diary is really helpful. Is like writing down what you're writing, being quite tedious, and yeah, writing your symptoms and what's going on. It's really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, as you go through these stages, you can definitely, like, if you move to stage 3, you might add avocado, and you might stay with just avocado for a week and see how your gut feels. And then you might add in nut butter pancakes. You might not do this all in the first day of trying stage 3. We're introducing things very slowly. And so that's also going to help you know or understand maybe what food it is that is causing this digestive issue.
It's almost like treating yourself like a baby who's coming onto food for the first time, right? Sometimes a newborn, you can't just introduce all the foods at once. Like, okay, how do you do with a cucumber? Great. How does your poop look? Oh, no, you got the shits. Cucumber wasn't good. You weren't ready for that. And it's really like rehabilitating yourself like a child.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like baby's digestive system. We're really just reintroducing food in that same way. That's a perfect way. I remember I thought of that the other day and it just completely left my mind. So thank you for mentioning that. It's like introducing a baby to food.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you consider, like, we have access to so many types of food constantly. Like, I can get a macadamia nut and a banana, like something that's tropical in Vancouver in the middle of December. It's like the body wasn't meant to be exposed to so many different types of food at once. You know, just a couple years ago, 50 years ago, we were eating seasonally and local. And imagine in this stage, if you're just dumping so many different foods into your stomach at once, the body's kind of like, what's going on here? Let's simplify. And this really gives the digestive system like a reset, like just like a okay.
Yeah, like we're really focusing on easy to digest. Like we're even cooking our vegetables in water so that they're broken down. Like everything is really focused on easy to digest. Our meats are being boiled. We're eating the meat. We're eating the vegetables from our meat stock. So the purpose is that it's very easy for us to digest. In stage 4. So again, increasing from previous stages. And now we're adding in some baked and roasted meats, cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. It's never cooked. That changes the structure of the oil when we do cook it or heat it. And then now we're bringing in some cleansing in stage 4. So fresh carrot juice is the first thing that we want to start with in the morning. Only, again, a small amount, see how your body reacts. If your body reacts well to carrot juice, then you want to add in celery and mint. So our body goes through cleansing and feeding phases. The first 3 stages, we're focusing on that feeding. We need to be able to have a strong enough body to be able to cleanse. So like Aga just mentioned, seasonal eating is similar to this. If you think about the fall and the winter here in Canada, we have a lot more of the feeding foods because we're almost like, it's like hibernation for us. In the spring and summer, we're eating more vegetables and fruits, and we're kind of working on that cleansing. So our body goes through this cycle the same way as nature does. We're also incorporating more baked goods made with nut flour. Now, if nut flour, you don't tolerate that well, then you can ferment the flour. If that doesn't work, you would try seed. And if you can't have seeds, you would have soaked and fermented white navy bean flour because that is very easy for us to digest. Stage 5, everything from previous stages, we're now having our own cooked, peeled, kind of like our own applesauce, homemade. Raw, again, still non-fibrous vegetables. So we would start with peeled cucumber, maybe even the seeds are taken out. Then we would have lettuce, and then from there we can try carrot, tomato, onion, cabbage. We're also including raw apple, pineapple, and mango, but only in juices. We're not eating those yet. We're only juicing them. And we're avoiding citrus fruit still because that can really be irritating for a lot of our systems. In stage 6, we're increasing again, and then now we're actually having peeled raw apple, raw fruit, more honey, baked cakes and things, but not sugar. We're sweetening only with dried fruits. So that is the intro, kind of in a nutshell. You definitely get used to it. That's what I followed for about 4 months. Once you kind of know how to make things, it's like you kind of get into this flow in your kitchen. But we're always making fermented foods. We're always making meat stock in those stages. And so these are some reasons you wouldn't want to start with the GAPS intro. If you're traveling or working away too often, you don't have access to a kitchen, it's probably doesn't make sense to start with the intro because you need to be in the kitchen more. If maybe this is for a teenager or anyone who just doesn't feel they have the cooking skills or even the kitchen utensils, like kids can be getting that peer pressure to not follow this kind of a diet. And if you just don't feel you have the cooking skills, then that's fine. You can start more on the full GAPS diet, which we'll talk about next. If you have severe constipation, then you should not start on the intro. And this is because we remove all the fiber in the first couple of stages. And we need to make sure that our bodies are able to eliminate for itself before we remove any fiber. And it's worth mentioning too that you can see a lot of improvement by not starting with the GAPS intro, but starting with the full GAPS diet. You can see a huge improvement in a lot of symptoms. But for a lot of people, just depending on, again, their condition of their gut or their microbiome, they might need to come back to the intro at some point and go through the 6 stages in order to see a complete recovery. So the full GAPS diet, this is really prioritizing our meats. A lot of organ meats, liver is really good for our liver. We're eating a lot of fish, eggs, fermented dairy, vegetables, fermented and raw. This is all 85% of our diet should be focused on this food. We are consuming homemade baked goods and fruits, but not as meal replacements, only snacks, so still in small quantities. We're still incorporating lots of natural fats, the butter, the ghee, coconut oil, olive oil. We need that for blood sugar regulation and for carb cravings. We're preparing all of our meals at home, unprocessed ingredients, continuing to increase our fermented foods for our good bacteria. And as Aga had mentioned, was way ahead of me, a food diary. So we need to respect our unique dietary needs and really observe our body. Noticing how does your body feel with this specific food. If you try something new, maybe try that one food for about a week or 2 weeks, notice how you feel, and then try something else. So food diary is really good for monitoring those reactions and the progress that you make. So I want to give you some tips for better gut health to walk away with. Tips 2, 4, forgot to change that. So rest and digest. This is the opposite of fight or flight. So we want to make sure we're in a calm, natural state before we eat. So maybe taking a breath with your food, connecting with your food. What state are you in before you eat? That also goes with managing our stress levels. Remember, if we're chronically stressed, we need to make sure that we are able to be in that restful state. Chewing your food is really important. Chew, 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 so that your body can actually recognize that food and be able to break it down. This also, I've noticed when I mention this to people or clients, just to chew their food, a lot of them actually say how their bloating has improved significantly just by chewing. If you reduce fluids, so it doesn't mean you can't have some sips of water when you eat, but just chugging an entire glass of water is really going to kind of dilute a lot of the stomach acid. And then drinking warm lemon water, apple cider vinegar, a cup of broth, that's really going to help 20 to 30 minutes before your meal. It's going to help your body be able to produce its own stomach acid. Sleep. So I don't want to be that nutritionist that's like sleep, exercise, do all those things, but sleep is really important. That's where our bodies are able to heal. If we're not getting enough sleep, our bodies are not going to be able to keep up and be able to heal. So when we're resting, we're healing. Avoid overeating. So my trick is when I sit down, I'm in a calm state, I chew my food, put my fork down. After I swallow, take another breath, and then pick up your fork. Just really take your time. Make it like a mealtime ritual. Exercise, so it doesn't have to be anything high intensity. Try some light yoga, some walking. Just get your body moving, get your detox pathways open, and then staying hydrated. So I like to add a lot of trace minerals to my water. We're constantly filtering our water, which is good because, again, we have like those, the fluoride and the chlorine in there. But what ends up happening is it also takes a lot of minerals out of our water. So I don't know if any of you have ever had like triple filtered water. Whenever I drink that, I end up feeling more dehydrated because it's not actually like quenching my thirst or almost feeding my cells. So I like to add some trace minerals in there, and it's really helpful. And then the last thing, join a community, join the Candida Cleanser Facebook support group if you're not in there already. We're all always talking to each other, trying to heal our gut. I know Aga and I had mentioned in the beginning, we're always doing the Candida Cleanser. I do it every year. I think Aga, you said you do it every year. So we're just always talking about, hey, I'm dealing with this. Can anyone relate? So it's just a community in there. And then we also have our 30-day gut rehab challenge starting April 1st. So that is, I believe, a week today. And this is an opportunity. We'll be following the full GAPS diet. I've created 5 weeks of meal plans for you. We also have a private WhatsApp group. You'll get 4 live coaching calls with Aga and myself, plus some Q&As. So this is an awesome time to really dive deeper in a community and get some of that, one-on-one support from both Aga and myself. And with that, I just want to say thank you. I do want to give you the free 7-day full GAPS diet meal plan. This is actually the first week of our gut rehab challenge that I wanted to give you. So this is including a meat stock recipe, sauerkraut, ghee, homemade yogurt, and homemade creme fraiche. So it includes all of that, and it's one full week with a shopping list. And if you wanted to find me at my, you can find me at nikkipimwellness.com, and my Instagram is at nikkipimwellness.
Thanks, Nikki. Yeah. So in the chat, I just linked the 7-day meal plan from Nikki that you can grab from her. And also, this was a really awesome presentation breakdown of the GAPS intros and the stages, and I'm going to share with you an ebook that's basically summarizes everything that Nikki covered today. So if you wanted to go ahead and do the GAPS protocol, this ebook summarizes the stages. There you go. So that's the second link. That's the explaining the GAPS diet. That's like your guide to the protocol. And yeah, you're welcome. So that's like your little Bible, but I do really recommend reading those books. They are so helpful. And then finally, our gut rehab program, we are starting next week, and early bird expired last week, but we wanted to extend early bird pricing to you. So if you wanted to join, like Nikki said, we're going to be meeting 4 times the next month, have a private WhatsApp chat group, and just guide you through the full GAPS program. Not the hard one, not the all those stages, because that's intense. That's a lot